Thanks for coming. Welcome to our session on the impact of AI on customer experience. I'm your moderator, Ann Conway, and I'm really happy to be joined by our two speakers, Dr. Aji Ghosh, the VP of Data and Research from Chattermill, and Dennis Wakabayashi from the Global Voice of CX. We're going to talk today about how AI is shaping customer experience, and we'll dive into the opportunities, the challenges, and some of the trends that we're seeing. We're going to be talking about some insights about how you can leverage these technologies effectively in your work. So first, a little bit about me. I'm Ann Conway. I'm the founder of Amplify, and we're a CX studio that helps retailers design personalized omni-channel shopping journeys. Aji, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Ann. I'm Aji, VP of Data and Research at Chattermill. And for the last 5 or so years, I've basically spent unlocking customer insights from feedback data using state-of-the-art NLP techniques.
Great. And Dennis?
I'm Dennis Wakabayashi, also known as the Global Voice of CX. And my real interest is in sharing conversations with brilliant minds like yourselves. And it's just an honor to be here today.
Thanks. Well, just to get started, what we're going to be talking about today are the real-world applications of AI, the future impact of AI trends and how they're going to shape CX, and some challenges and solutions that our speakers are seeing. So let's dive into the first topic, the real-world applications. I'd love it if both of you could talk a little bit about what are some of the points along the customer journey where you see the biggest opportunities for AI to solve user problems or to create business value. Aji, let's start with you.
Sure, thanks, Ann. So there are many specific areas where AI is already creating value, and I think that's a really important thing to focus on. For example, personalizing customer journeys is one of the big sort of hot topics where you're not just sort of treating everyone as the sort of same mass of consumers, but actually looking at tailoring the experiences at an individual level. And then the other sort of fairly big one is customer support assistance. We know that customer support is hard, tricky, quite time consuming. So this is where the sort of new generation of NLP-powered virtual assistants, for example, can be very helpful in terms of providing instant responses. Not always 100% correct, but at least instant responses to customer questions and reducing wait times and sort of enhancing satisfaction critically, right? So this is all about sort of scaling the human touch, but using AI and NLP.
Okay. Dennis?
Well, since Aji already spoke about the customer journey, I would say one of the other big impact areas is before the customer reaches any brand, they also are empowered by AI. So they have a new ability to compare competitors, compare prices, figure out the best season or time to buy something like a plane ticket in a way that they've never had before. So there is a huge opportunity for companies who understand that there are AI-powered consumers coming into the market, and how does the handshake happen? So I think that there's a big opportunity there.
All right. So you two just brought up some really big opportunity areas for AI, and I know there's tons of others. How should companies, including our listeners here, prioritize which ones of those opportunities they prioritize and invest in?
So I think one of the really important things companies need to think about when evaluating, a lot of these AI opportunities, and many of them have, more hype than others, is long-term viability of AI projects. And in particular, there are probably like 3 criteria that I would recommend. The first one is strategic goals of a company. So not starting with the technology, but starting with like what the company really cares about. The second one is scalability potential. So not just having a nice demo that you can't actually use in production in the real world. So that's really important as well. And then thirdly, like return on investment. There are a bunch of opportunities that are great, but actually the ROI, to spend expensive AI resources on isn't necessarily worth it. So yeah, I would suggest that those 3 things would really help going beyond sort of flashy proof of concept demos that don't actually add real business value.
Okay. Dennis, anything to add there?
Well, I would say, just to compliment again what Aji said, is that is a fantastic roadmap for maturity in AI. And I would just add that along that journey, there are a lot of choices and explorations that one should do. And having a team that experiences firsthand free AI tools to become educated and have a sensibility about what they're experiencing will make them better along Aji's journey to success in terms of profitability, scalability, return on investment. That the AI environment is one that requires both clear direction, but also savvy exploration.
Okay. So kind of related to that, how do you prioritize the opportunities? We've seen so much momentum behind building new AI features and getting them out to market across the landscape. I wondered what you guys could speak about how companies can think about measuring the value that those innovations actually deliver to the customer or to the business over time.
Aji, let me jump in to that because I think that contextually, we're all in this conversation. And there's tools that are mature now in the market that are available to brands to use. These AI tools, as you're astutely pointing out, Anne, they represent a new sort of measurement practice that we can have. And so when I look at tools that can evaluate customer conversations in a particular short duration or even real time, it changes the dynamic from post-experience memory attribution or analysis to closer to real time and at scale. So when I look at particular tools that can measure conversations, that have a breadth of experiential data from many years or trends, but can tie that to the present, we have a whole new set of measurements that are measurements that bring us speed to market, product innovation, closing sales cycles, making sales cycles shorter. So I think fundamentally, more importantly than what we measure, it's about partnering or finding tools that have a breadth of historical data that can tie it to the present. So what I would say is the most important measurements have to do with the present.
And how do we know if the AI tools are paying off for customers, even if they're paying off for the business?
Shorter sales cycles.
Okay. Aji, how about you?
Definitely. And to reiterate some of the points that Dennis just made, I think having objective measurements is really, really critical because it's not only important for business, but also the actual science and engineering. Because a lot of the times you don't know actually if you're making progress or not, or you might think you're making progress, but actually, you're going, the business wants you to head one way and you're going some completely, opposite tangent. So I think having that measure really allows people to focus concretely on that. So if, for example, you're designing let's say a Copilot insight assistant that's supposed to make it easier for less analytically proficient users to analyze some complex data, then a very concrete metric like reducing time to insights, for example, for that specific user group would be the thing you'd want to measure to then directly make sure all that investment in that AI is actually paying off where you want it to pay off.
Okay, so time to insights, that's a really specific measure you could use.
Yeah.
Anything else come to mind that businesses can think about? Because this is a part of the conversation. I don't actually hear that often.
Well, I might just say that listening to customer conversations is, to me, the new frontier that's opened up with AI. We can certainly process a bunch of words, but what words are they? I think we've found already through some of the online tools that just having a vast amount of words and content to consume is one thing. To have customer conversations, to start to understand sentiment, intent, to identify the relationship that a brand has with its audience, whether it's in social media or it's in our call centers, we will see that contextual conversations are central to the forefront of pioneering this new AI economy. And Aji pointed that out earlier. Context is everything.
Okay. So the ability to have contextual listening and conversations with your customers is valuable. Here's something a little bit different. I know that probably most of the people in the audience are really interested in AI and assume it's going to improve their customer experience and, deliver business value. But I wondered what you both thought about how AI can avoid making the customer experience worse, and if you've seen any examples of that. Aji, start with you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So definitely, there have been a number of cases where there's been, because of the hype, people have felt like we have to use AI for everything, and actually, like in many cases, that sort of fell short of initial expectations. In particular, I would say there's sometimes this obsession with AI that you need to automate everything. It needs to be like either entirely human or just automate everything 100%. And that's a sort of quite a large problem, especially with the current technology, which essentially uses large language models. And the reason for that is because sometimes they hallucinate, they generate things that are not that representative or correct, and sometimes they're very confidently wrong. So that's not a great combination to have, right? So
No.
I would still advocate for sort of a human in the loop in a lot of really important CX contexts, because yes, these models are good at understanding context, but they're not perfect at it.
Okay. Dennis, any examples?
I would say metaphorically, people have trouble wrapping their mind around AI, and I think of it like the discovery of fire. Humans probably were like, whoa, this thing could really get out of hand quickly. And over the years of understanding fire and warmth and heat, we've developed torches, rocket ships, all these things out of fire. And the thing about AI is it consumes and it runs on its own. So to Aji's point, without a governor of some sort of conditioning by humans, it certainly can be dangerous. And I would just say that there are examples now in the world where humans who are moderating AI to create these boundaries have been singed by the fire of AI. And it's an important thing to understand, which is this is something that could be transformative to our world, could take us to the moon and back. But at the same time, the thoughtful consideration of how we explore and understand AI will be important to all of us as we harness it to go to new places and do new things.
Okay. So risks that range from getting the wrong answers from a confidently wrong chatbot to, dangerous being consumed by fire, or models that are hallucinating and give us, critical information that's wrong.
Man, I'll give you a specific example of this singe. AI, when AI thinks about things, you could ask it to think about politics, or in this particular instance, violence. So as you put moderators on the AIs to prevent them from producing violent answers, those human moderators have to moderate all the violent hallucinations that AI can come up with to purge them from the system. And that experience alone can be very traumatizing to humans. So we're already at the boundary of where the ability to think and say anything is a conflict with our moral and our ethical perceptions.
Okay. So how should people listening here today who are interested in developing AI applications kind of be thinking about how to prevent those risks? How should they incorporate that into their product development?
Aji, that's all you.
I'll go first. So I think in the future, like in this sort of AI-enabled world, sort of traditional competitive advantages are very likely to be less significant. And the reason why I sort of say that is because I think there might be multiple dimensions to these different AI technologies go on. Obviously, there'll be new AI technologies as well. But one of the things that clearly seems very important for AI right now is that there's no meaning without context. These models don't, they can't generate anything without huge amounts of training data, as Dennis, for example, just mentioned, right? But in the future, in the context of consumers, I think what will become fairly real quite soon is the idea of having personalized AIs. So personalized AIs that aren't just trained on the World Wide Web and all sorts of other data, but actually trained on your habits, your behaviors, your preferences. So they start storing and understanding and eventually reasoning. Right now they're not very good at the reasoning of it, but eventually, futuristic, reasoning about sort of your personal circumstances and what, based on your preferences and behaviors, you would like to do. And in many cases, you would then have like sort of your AI bidding with a bunch of other algorithms to sort of get you recommendations that really make sense for you. So it's this sort of bot to bot interaction, which is a bit sci-fi, but I can see it.
You can see. Okay, great. Well, just to carry on that discussion about the future, looking a little bit farther out, I wondered if you both could talk a little bit about how AI can kind of empower consumers with more knowledge and better choices. So maybe kind of resetting the dynamic between consumers and businesses where they have more information along the customer experience. And so in that context, what happens to competition? What happens to the business landscape when, like you said, there's personalized AI that can guide us in really powerful ways? Dennis, let's start with you.
Fascinating discussion about competition amongst consumers powered by their personal AIs. And is it redefining the competitive landscape? Because in capitalism, there is a sense of unique value proposition. And perhaps we're defining a time or an era where value propositions are more closely aligned with personal needs or interests. And competition may really move away from competitor to competitor and same offering at price and product to a place of geographic competition or innovation, competitiveness to innovate. So perhaps this new AI world will cause a new era of transformation and innovation that we haven't seen before.
Huh. Okay, so it might actually change the dynamics of the competition itself. That would be exciting. Aji, what do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, to sort of touch on some of the ideas from Dennis, I think we can already see some glimpses of that in some other markets that are maybe, I wouldn't say necessarily further ahead, but they're just like a bit different. So, for example, East Asia, especially in China, for example, if we're looking at the impact of algorithms and the kind of recommendations they get, it's already changing the market much more to a sort of peer-to-peer consumer model than the very traditional sort of business-to-consumer market that we have in much of the West. And I mean, not just the sort of products you'd buy from a place, but also services. Like cosmetic treatments, hairdresser, all those kind of things have changed quite a lot. And actually, these sort of dynamic recommendations, at the moment, they're not based on your personal like extensive history or anything like that. It's a lot simpler, but I can sort of already see this kind of democratization of the market, and like access to a market for a lot of people in a more direct way than they've had sort of previously been able to. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to sort of see how the actual marketplace changes as a result of providing users and producers different ways of interacting.
So what are some of like the product innovations that have come out of that peer-to-peer model?
Well, one innovation is, for example, having like these sort of what I call mega apps that are like ecosystems of everything. So in much of the West, we sort of think of like our banking app, an app for chatting with our friends and family, another app for posting things. Whereas a lot of the kind of sort of big incumbents in China in particular are very much, well, one app that has all those things and allows you to obviously, not only do those things, but actually collect information on all of those different things, right? So this AI, as I already mentioned, is based on large language models, and context is important. It has a lot more context than, our individual apps would have, even with the best AI, right? Because our apps would then just have context about your banking, which is quite a lot, but, not as much as if you had context about the banking and what you're talking to your friends and family about. and then all these other touch points, right? So I'm pretty sure in the future, like harnessing more of that data then allows these models also make these genuinely personalized recommendations that just seem so much more meaningful than like a generic ad you'll see.
Aji,
Wow.
I just want to jump in on that, which is you make such a salient point about the global landscape of AI and technology. And in the West, we don't understand how far behind we are already. And to your point, and I just want to touch on what Aji said, which is so important for the world to understand that if you're in the US, you're like curious about AI and you're trying to figure it all out. But in other parts of the world, they have this thing down to where your phone opens certain doors for you, and when you get next to it, and it keeps other doors closed. That level of personalization and access to the real world is already at full maturity in some places based on these technologies. And it's going to be a very different world when our phones become almost like a second identity or half of our access to the real world.
Wow. Yeah, no, this is cool. We went from feature innovation to product innovation to AI just creating whole new markets and types of intelligence that kind of act on our behalf. So that was great. I think we're about out of time. So we covered a lot today. We talked about, specific opportunities people can think about on this call along the customer experience, ways to kind of evaluate the value and prioritize. And some of the things to think about in terms of the risks and the long-term potential of AI. So with that, I want to close and thank you very much to our speakers, Aji Ghosh and Dinesh Wakabayashi, and we'll get right back to you after this session. Thanks.